tense relations between Washington and Pyongyang. Well, joining me now on Skype from Busan in South Korea is Robert Kelly. He's a professor of political science from Busan University. Thanks for joining us on the programme. North Korea has a habit of arresting and charging Americans with hostile acts, I suppose more commonly known as spying. You can read this two ways, Mr. Kelly. America continues to send spies into North Korea, or North Korea is looking to have some other standoff again with the US.
Well, I would probably read it the second way, if those are your only two alternatives. I imagine that the United States and the South Koreans do attempt to spy on North Korea, but it's pretty difficult given that it's a totalitarian state. I don't really know too many stories in the literature about successful spies from either country in North Korea in the past, so I highly doubt that the tourists that they arrest are spies. The real issue, I think, is the missionaries. The North Korean government really doesn't like Christian missionaries in North Korea who come through the tour groups, and they've made that repeatedly clear. That's the big issue with Kenneth Bae. And then also there's sort of a sneaking suspicion that under the new regime, Kim Jong-un, the new Kim running North Korea, that capturing hostages, taking tourist prisoners, stuff like that, is now sort of becoming a strategy to use as bargaining chips against the United States.
If that is the case, I mean, normally what we've seen in the past, North Korea wants to try and get some concessions, as you've touched on, issues such as food or even debate and negotiation over its nuclear development is normally a standoff point. What do you think Pyongyang is up to this time?
Well, like I said, I mean, I think there's sort of an emerging theme out there now in the discussion about North Korea that maybe these people are being taken to be used as bargaining chips now, that this is something new. Like you said, the nuclear program is a big deal. The missile program is a big deal. China is under North Korea is under a pretty significant level of sanction, both from the UN and then bilaterally from countries like the United States and Japan. So it might be looking for any way to sort of slip out of this. And again, I think in the case of Mr. Bae and a few others, they often use the Christian missionary angle as an excuse to pick people up. Also, North Korea is a very controlled society. I've been to North Korea on these tours and stuff like that. And when you're there, they're very explicit about what you should and should not look at, take a picture at, walk up to, touch, and things like that. So there are all sorts of tripwires and rules that make it easy, if you will, for North Korea to say, you violated X, Y, Z, we can pick you up. And then the question is sort of what can they use to extract, or what can they get for these people? What can they extract from the United States? So like you said, sort of aid or price or something like that.
Now, China is often used as a mediator to try and get North Korea out of a sticky dilemma, and it's been exacerbated in the past. So what do you think China's relationship is at the moment with its North Korea neighbour, and do you think it's going to be involved in this current dispute?
I would imagine that it will. Most of the time, the Americans that the North Koreans pick up don't actually sit in jail for such a long time. Kenneth Bae's experience, where he's been in jail now, I think, for almost 2 years, that's fairly exceptional. But usually these people come back. There's some kind of presidential visit or some kind of former Secretary of State will come to North Korea. And the Chinese are very often behind the scenes brokering these things. The Chinese are in a tough position. On the one hand, they don't want North Korea to collapse because they don't want a unified South Korea on their border. They certainly don't want American soldiers on their border. On the other hand, the Chinese know that the North Koreans are pretty erratic, that the North Koreans create a lot of trouble for the United States and South Korea, and they really want to have good relations with them both. And so for the Chinese, it's pretty important that these things get smoothed over in the end.
We'll see what does happen. For the moment, Robert Kelly joining us from Busan. Thanks for your time. Well, still ahead.